In this video, we're going to take a look at the second edition of the Jazz Standards Progression Book. So if you're wondering whether you should own any of these volumes or which one you should own, this video is going to help you sort all of that out. And if you're already an owner of one of these volumes, we're going to show you how to get the most out of it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out which format best suits your needs. And we have two options for you. We have the traditional paperback format and an interactive PDF that you can get on any device, whether it's Mac, Android, Windows, or iOS. So let's dive into the pros and cons of the PDF first. One of the pros might be obvious, is that it's portable and accessible almost anywhere. And with 64 volumes and over 30,000 pages of music, to be able to have that at your fingertips on your phone or your tablet, wherever you are at any time, is a serious pro, in my opinion. Another pro of the PDF format is its interactivity. So while it is just a simple PDF, it is filled with interactive links. And just like any PDF, I can also search by title or by a specific word, or in this case, a song. So when I click on Afternoon in Paris, boom, there I have it right away, Afternoon in Paris. So we already have all of the analysis here, all the cadence detectors, all the functions, and embedded in all of that is even more information about any of these functions or chords. Let me show you what I mean. If I just click on the F7 in measure 2, this 5/7 of the flat 7, the secondary dominant, and I click on that, it sends me to another page that shows me where that chord is within our map of tonal harmony, the tendencies it might have, its functionality. It is a secondary dominant of the flat 7, its default chord type, and the default chord scale, which in this case is Mixolydian. So this shows me a lot about that chord if I'm going to be improvising or even writing or arranging over it. So not only that, if I look at the bottom of the page, I can see this function's root in all 12 keys. So aside from clicking on any function within the chart and seeing more about it, I can also do that with any of the chord scale pairings and see more about the scale that informs the chord and maybe even the melody or what I'm improvising on. So we talked about Mixolydian on that first example. Let's look at a more obscure chord and a chord scale that goes with it, like maybe this Locrian natural 13 down here in measure 6. So I can see everything about this scale that I need to know, that it has 7 notes, there's 7 modes, I can transpose it 12 times. I see its intervallic formula, I see it by way of its degrees formula. I see that its source scale is harmonic minor, that it's the second mode of harmonic minor. And of course, I have it written on my stavs here in all 12 keys, mapped out for me also on the piano and the fretboard. Another cool feature of the PDF is that we've vectorized the graphics. So basically this means you can zoom in as much as you want and there will be no degradation in the quality of the image. You still see it nice, dark, black and bold with no pixelation. Another great pro of the PDF format is that if you decide to purchase any of these volumes, you have instant access to that volume right away that day, because all you have to do is download it, as opposed to ordering a paperback and waiting for it to be delivered to your house. The last pro of the PDF is it's a big one in my opinion. With the price of paper being more and more expensive these days, the cost of the PDF is a fraction of that compared to the paperback format. So if you're interested in all of the aforementioned pros, as well as saving a few dollars, then the PDF is definitely the way to go. As for some of the pros of the paperback, some of them are obvious, like we don't have to rely on a device to be able to use our paperback format. We don't have to worry about our device running out of batteries like ours did today while shooting this, so you're not tethered to any sort of technology whatsoever. The size is also very large, 8.5 by 11, and legible. There's also that tactile and familiar feel of just having the book in your hands and being able to interact with it or use a pencil to make the notes, maybe traditionally how you're used to doing. So there's all of those pros built into the paperback that aren't really an option on the PDF. So far, jazz fake books have offered musical contents expressed as melodies and chord changes. None of them show either harmonic analysis nor chord scales. This series of books is a collection of well-known jazz standards. No melodies are included, as the purpose of this project is to provide something that has been overlooked until now: analysis and harmonic interpretation of the chord progressions. So basically, what we're trying to do here is encourage everyone who uses these books to see the grammar of this language of jazz. And doing that outside of the melody, you probably already have the real book anyways. And if you don't, you should get it, because this is meant to be a supplement of the real books, not necessarily a replacement. So what we're trying to do here is to try to maybe open up a different perspective that you might have on these songs by getting you to focus in on the tendencies that this harmony tends to have again and again and again throughout the songs. So page 8 talks about chord scale pairings. And we touched on this just a little bit a few minutes ago. Basically what this means is, if you look at the paperback or the PDF, every chord is accompanied by a chord scale. So C minor 7 has Dorian written underneath it. This F7 next to it has Mixolydian written underneath it. So basically what this means is, simply put, a chord and a scale is a chord scale pairing if the chord is contained in the scale and they both share the same root. So basically what this means is, for like C major, let me get this over here. For C major 7, I could pair that with C Ionian, depending on the chord's function within the context of the progression. Or I might pair the same chord with C Lydian. And then from there, we can get into certain things like tensions, avoid tensions, guide tones, root notes, and all that stuff. All of that is explained within all the volumes. We also have a separate video that goes into depth on that as well. You can check that out also. And when you get into these note classifications by way of these chord scale pairings, you start to see the purpose of certain notes or what they can introduce as far as more tension, less tension. Your voice leading might change, your improvisation might change, what you do with your arrangement might change too. And all that is informed by these chord scale pairings. Let's talk briefly about some of the symbolism that you might find in this book. Most of the symbols are based on the classical or jazz standard notation. Harmonic analysis has evolved and is constantly evolving, and there are many schools of thought in jazz. There is a subset of symbols shared by all jazz players, but also a wide variety of ways to notate certain attributes in music, from chord symbols to chord scale names to functional analysis. This book uses a 4-layered analysis format: arrows and brackets analysis, chord symbols, chord scales, and functional analysis by way of these Roman numerals that you see throughout the book. So if you take a glance at any of the points in any of the songs within the book, you'll see all 4 of these layers. You'll see the chord symbol on top, the brackets and arrows analysis. Underneath the chord symbol, you see the scale, and then down underneath the music, you see the functional analysis. So I know what you're probably thinking at this point, that understanding all these symbols is maybe esoteric to the point of being useless. But I can't stress enough how important or crucial this actually is as it relates to your understanding of the music. So this ties really well into our workbook right here, where if I open it up to Afternoon in Paris, I can see our song minus the chord symbol. So I get the key and I get the functional analysis, but most importantly, as it relates to what we're talking to right now, I can see our brackets and arrows analysis. And what this allows me to do is I can make sense of what's going on here based on just that, and I can contextualize what the chords are based on understanding the symbols we just laid out for you guys a minute ago. So if I start with a C major 7, I got my headless arrow, so I'm going to keep the root where it is, and I know this turns into a minor 7 chord. All right, then I have a bracket, so that means we're going to do a 2-5. and then our arrow, 5-1. And now I see a sequence of the same exact idea coming up in the next measure. So I just take the chord I'm on now, which I've just happened to navigated myself to a B flat major 7, and turn it into a B flat minor 7, because there's that headless arrow again. And yet another bracket, so here's our 2-5, and then our arrow to a 1. So what this is going to allow me to do is not only see the tendencies within the song and how that idea was just sequenced in the third and fourth bar, but also maybe see where these words show up in other pieces of music, and helps me really wrap my brain around this language of music or jazz in general. So if I want to take this and transpose this into the key of G, I now can, because again, I'm looking at the tendencies of the music outside of the arbitrary, seemingly arbitrary chord symbols. So if I want to do it in G, now I make this a minor chord and just do a 2-5-1. And then I take that, make that a minor chord, turn that into a 2-5-1. And I was able to do that outside of the chord symbols. I was able to do that by way of these brackets and arrows analysis and understanding the language of the music. The second edition of the Jazz Standards Progression Book is here. With an entire new volume, the second edition of the Jazz Standards Progression Book has now over 1,300 jazz standards completely analyzed, with full harmonic analysis, chords, chord scales, and arrows and brackets analysis in 4 beautifully presented volumes. Volume 4 contains gems not included in the first 3 volumes by iconic jazz composers such as Jerry Mulligan, Dexter Gordon, Irving Berlin, Cole Porter, and Duke Ellington, just to name a few. This new edition is far superior, with amazing interactivity and superb quality. Now you can click on any harmonic function or chord scale to reveal a dedicated page that explains all you need to know. The graphic design has been greatly improved for a nicer, more fluent read with much more flow to it. Zoom as much as you want without losing any definition. Every song has been carefully revised and updated as needed using the latest features available in mapping tonal harmony. Each volume includes a complete section with introductory chapters on jazz harmony theory, explaining chord scale pairings, Roman numeral notation, advanced harmonic considerations, and more. The interactive PDF allows for an easy and quick navigation throughout each volume. This is an organized, coherent approach to jazz harmony. And that's not all. In the second edition of the Jazz Standards Progression Book collection, every volume is now mirrored by 5 different volumes that makes this collection the perfect companion for any musician. Play completely new reharmonizations of every jazz standard with the Jazz Standards Progressions Reharmonized, in which every jazz standard has been reharmonized using effective reharmonization techniques. Study and practice jazz harmony by filling in the correct chord symbols with the Ultimate Jazz Harmony Workbook, with entire jazz standards showing the functional analysis but no chords. These workbooks offer the same interactivity as the Jazz Standards Progression Book so that you can check your answers and learn more about each function by just clicking on the Roman numeral. Transcribe, compose, analyze, arrange, and write piano voicings or create different types of worksheets with the Jazz Standards Notebooks, showing every jazz standards chord progression on single staff, grand staff, or guitar tabs. Having every jazz standard already laid out for you on empty staves is an invaluable resource for students and teachers alike. So, what are you waiting for? Get the Jazz Standards Progression Book today and take your music to the next level.